Imagine this scenario: a person suffering from an advanced stage of cancer lies in a hospital bed. Despite the modern medicine, the pain cannot fully be relieved. The patient has tried every treatment available, but nothing has stopped the suffering. One day, the patient calmly tells the doctor, "I appreciate everything you have done for me, but I don't want to continue living like this. I want help to die peacefully." What should the doctor do, in your own opinion? This question then immediately places us in the middle of one of the most difficult ethical debates in modern healthcare, and that is euthanasia. It forces us to consider not only medical facts about life, but also a deeper moral questions about our lives: suffering, autonomy, and compassion. To guide this conversation and to unpack these ideas more clearly, let us now hear from the voices in the room leading today's discussion. And so I am Charles, alongside.
My name is Mahila.
Hi, I'm Steven.
I am Salim.
I am Balakapo.
And so we will be guiding you through this discussion. And in this first episode, we will be exploring how virtues and values shape ethical decision making in healthcare, and how these ideas help professionals navigate some of the most emotionally and morally complex situations they face. To add on to that, how moral character and ethical principles shape real life decisions. One philosopher who strongly influenced this discussion was Aristotle. He believed that ethical living is not simply about following rules, but about cultivating virtues that guide our judgment in complex situations. And so before we examine the euthanasia debate in our discussion, we should first understand what philosophers meant by virtues and values, because these ideas form the foundation of our ethical reasoning. And so let's hear this part from Mahalia.
Good day. Virtues are character traits that enable people to live morally good lives. These include qualities such as honesty, courage, compassion, patience, and even fairness. According to Aristotle, virtues are not automatic qualities that people simply possess as birth. Instead, they are developed gradually through practice and moral learning. For example, a medical student initially learned about compassion as a professional expectation. But over time, through caring for patients and witnessing suffering, compassion becomes a part of the doctor's character. The doctor naturally responds to patients with empathy and concern. Virtue ethics therefore focuses on who we become as moral agents, rather than only on the specific actions we perform.
That's an important distinction because many ethical theories focus mainly on rules. For instance, rule-based approaches might say that certain actions are always right or always wrong. But virtue ethic asks different question. What would a moral good person do in this situation? That question recognizes that real life is complicated. Ethical dilemmas often involve conflicting duties or values. In those moments, a person's character becomes extremely important.
And characters matters, especially in professions like healthcare. Doctors constantly face situations where rules alone cannot fully guide them. For example, a doctor might have to decide how much information to share with a patient who is emotionally fragile. Honesty is important, but so is compassion. A virtuous doctor must balance both values carefully.
Now the question arises, if virtues describe the qualities people should develop, how do values fit into the picture?
Values are principles or ideas that individuals and society consider important. They guide how and we evaluate action and decision. Commonly ethical values include justice, respect for human dignity, equality, autonomy, and responsibility. In healthcare, certain value especially important. For example, the value of beneficency means that medical profession should act in a way that benefit patients. Another value is non-maleficence, means that they should avoid causing harm. The value helps shape medical ethics and professional standards.
While I do agree with you, the challenge is that values sometimes conflict with each other. For instance, respecting a patient's autonomy may conflict with the value of protecting human life. When that happens, ethical decision-making becomes much more complex.
That's interesting as we journey, but let's now look at euthanasia more closely because this is what highlights this conflict between values. Euthanasia, as it is, refers to intentionally ending a person's life to relieve severe suffering. Some countries, such as the Netherlands and Belgium, have already legalized certain forms of euthanasia under strict conditions, while many other countries still continue to prohibit it. So, let's hear what Stephen can say about what ethical arguments are often used in support of euthanasia.
Supporters of euthanasia often focus on the value of autonomy, which is the idea that individuals will have control over decisions about their own bodies and lives. If a person is experiencing unbearable suffering with no possibility of recovery, advocates argue that respecting the patient's autonomy means allowing them to choose when and how they die. Another argument is based on compulsion. Supporters claim that forcing someone to endure prolonged suffering when they clearly wish to end their life may actually be cruel.
Those arguments are powerful, but critics raise serious concern as well. One major concern is sanctity of life. The idea that human life has inherent value and should not be intentionally destroyed. Many medical professionals believe that their role is fundamentally to heal and preserve life, not to end it. There is also a concern about potential abuse of euthanasia becomes widely accepted. Vulnerable people such as the elderly and disabled might feel pressure to end their lives so they do not become a burden on others.
Yes, I may agree to that. That's why some critics refer to the slippery slope argument. They worry that once euthanasia is allowed in limited circumstances, the criteria might gradually expand in a way that society did not originally intend. For example, Some people worry that euthanasia could eventually be extended beyond terminal illnesses to include psychological suffering or disability.
But if we think about it carefully, refusing euthanasia can also have moral consequence. If someone is in extreme pain and repeatedly asks for help to die, denying that request might ignore their suffering.
That's true, but compassion can also mean improving soothing care rather than ending life. Advances in pain management and hospitals care have helped many patients experience dignity and comfort in their final stages of life.
All in all, this debate really shows how virtue ethics works in practice. A virtuous doctor must combine compassion, wisdom, and integrity when evaluating such situations. There may not always be a simple answer, but moral character helps guide thoughtful decision making.
Our discussion today now highlights how complex ethical decision making can be in healthcare, especially questions about euthanasia, as already revealed in our discussion how deeply values such as autonomy, compassion, and respect for life can conflict.
In this sense, virtue ethics remind us that ethical decision making is not just about rules. It is also about the character and judgment of the person making the decision.
Doctors, nurses, and caregivers must constantly navigate these tensions while maintaining compassion and professional responsibilities.
And so, in our next episode, we will be exploring ethical dilemmas in workplaces and modern technology, areas where moral character is equally important. Because the hardest discussion or decisions do not just happen in hospitals, they also happen in offices, boardrooms, and even in the algorithms shaping our everyday lives. Thank you once again, dear friends, for listening and reflecting with us in this first episode. We appreciate your time and curiosity. You stay tuned as we continue this conversation in our next episode. Once again, I am Charles.
I am Mahela.
I am Stephen.
I am Salim.
I am Balakapo.
And so this is the end of our first episode.
Thank you for joining us. The central takeaway of this episode is that ethical decision making in healthcare is rarely a matter of simply following a rulebook. Rather, it is a complex negotiation between virtues and values. While values like autonomy, which is the right to choose, and beneficence, which is the duty to do good, provide the framework for our ideals, it is the cultivation of Aristotelian virtues such as compassion, practical wisdom, and integrity that allows a practitioner to navigate moments where these ideals conflict. The debate over euthanasia serves as the ultimate case study for this tension, pitting the value of self-determination against the sanctity of life and the slippery slope of potential abuse. Ultimately, this episode illustrates that when medical technology reaches its limit and moral certainty fails, the character of the moral agent becomes the most critical tool for ensuring a decision is not just legal but truly ethical.